I'm not a lawyer, but Jay-Z filed a lawsuit today against the Jane Doe that was suing him and Diddy for SA. And the suit says that Jane Doe has now, quote, voluntarily admitted directly to representatives of Mr. Carter that the story brought before the world and in court and on global television was just that, a false, malicious story. She has admitted that Mr. Carter did not assault her and that indeed it was Buzbee himself, whom she met for the first time at a coffee shop in Houston on the day of her maliciously false NBC interview, who pushed her to go forward with the false narrative of the assault by Mr. Carter in order to leverage a maximum payday. Let me give you a recap of this lawsuit. So the lawsuit was filed in Alabama, which is apparently where the Jane Doe lives, and it's filed against Jane Doe, Tony Buzbee, and another attorney named David Fortney, as well as the Buzbee law firm. Now, at the beginning of the suit, Jay-Z and his attorney say that Jane Doe appears to be suffering from personal and financial hardship. She lost custody of her children, and her parents, who on information and belief support her, recently filed for bankruptcy protection. Now, why are they putting out her parents' business? The lawsuit goes on to say that, quote, a simple Google or other public record search of Doe, well, I see they figured out who she is, would have cast doubt on her credibility by revealing that, among other things, less than 90 days before sending the demand letter, she had been in court on mental health related issues in connection with her second-degree assault charge and had her bail revoked for failing a drug test. She has several mental health disorders and takes multiple medications according to testimony from her psychiatrist. And she's made 3 other assault allegations which were either dropped or dismissed by courts. This is why I don't play with lawsuits, because y'all not gonna be telling people what medical professionals have said about me. Okay? The lawsuit then details the timeline of the allegations, some of the claims Jane Doe made during that NBC interview, as well as what they say were inconsistencies with her story. Now, from there, the lawsuit then focuses on what was happening around the time of the voluntary dismissal for the assault lawsuit. Quick context, as most of us know, Tony Buzbee is not admitted to practice in the Southern District of New York. This was one of the first things that Jay-Z's attorney, Alex Spiro, highlighted when he was brought on the assault case. The judge presiding over that case then told Tony Buzbee that he had until February 14th to file proof of his admission to the Southern District of New York. But the day before that February 14th deadline, Tony Buzbee learned that his application for admission to Southern District of New York had been denied because he had already been filing cases in that court without being admitted. So they were like, we not finna admit you now. Now, according to this Jay-Z lawsuit, after Buzbee learned that he was not going to be admitted to the Southern District of New York, he had David Fortney, the other attorney that's named in this suit, to meet with Jane Doe, and he told her that, quote, the case against Mr. Carter needed to be dismissed as Mr. Carter had made threats against Doe's life and it was too dangerous to continue with the case. Now, Jay-Z and his team say none of that is true. Jay-Z never threatened Jane Doe. And the only reason that David Fortney told Jane Doe that is because he and Buzbee needed to get her to agree to withdraw the false case, or else they could face punishment in court for their actions in filing a false case in a district that Buzbee wasn't even admitted to practice in, which would have jeopardized their ability to continue with the more than 20 other cases that they had already filed. And that's why, according to them, on the evening of Friday, February 14th, Jane Doe quietly and voluntarily dismissed the lawsuit against Jay-Z with prejudice. But then it goes on to say that the threats and extortion did not end with the dismissal of Jane Doe's fraudulent lawsuit. There's more. It says on Friday, February 28th, 2025, that was a couple days ago, after Jane Doe admitted that everything was a lie and that Buzbee was aware it was a lie, a prominent New York attorney representing Tony Buzbee and David Fortney called one of Jay-Z's lawyers and threatened that if Jay and his team filed anything about Jane Doe admitting everything was a lie and that Jay never assaulted her, Buzbee and his team in return would, quote, issue a public statement on behalf of Jane Doe saying that she was, 1, being harassed by Mr. Carter's people since she dropped the lawsuit, and 2, that she only dropped the lawsuit because she was afraid for her life, and that the allegations against Mr. Carter in the dropped lawsuit were in fact all true. This is a mess. So because of all of that, Jay-Z is now suing Jane Doe, Tony Buzbee, David Fortney, and the Buzbee law firm for malicious prosecution because he says they filed this lawsuit with the intent to extort him. And after realizing that their plan would not succeed, they quietly dismissed the lawsuit. And it also notes that the lawsuit was resolved in Mr. Carter's favor without settlement or compromise. So if you were wondering if Jay-Z paid her out, according to them, no. Cause of action number 2 is abuse of process. And then cause of action number 3 is civil conspiracy because Jay says that This team of people all worked together and knowingly and willfully conspired to maliciously prosecute and abuse the legal process against him. And then the last cause of action is defamation, which is specifically against Jane Doe. And this goes to what Jay and his team say are for the false statements that Jane Doe knowingly made against him. And they specify that these allegations that she made against Jay were crimes of moral turpitude, which is key in a defamation lawsuit, because what that means is she falsely accused Jay-Z of a crime that everyone across the board believes is bad. And of course, in this instance, that alleged crime was the assault of a 13-year-old, which Jay and his team say has subjected him to disgrace, ridicule, public hatred, and contempt. And so that's the lawsuit. Child, it seems like Jay-Z is coming for everything. And now, according to TMZ, Jane Doe has filed some legal docs somewhere where she is saying that Jay-Z was intimidating and threatening her, and her parents were even approached by some people. How y'all feel?